how's everyone going? It's been a little while since I've been on live. Hope you're all doing fabulously well. I'm good. I had a little bit of a break and now I'm back to it, back to work. But what I've decided to do is I've been getting tons and tons and tons of questions on my Facebook Messenger. Lots of questions are always coming through, and most of them I get to answer, but some of them I miss and I can't get to answer. So what I thought I would do is I would do a weekly, take a question from the messenger, pop it up so everybody gets a chance to actually get the benefits of the questions that are being asked. Because the thing about the questions when they're on messenger is that everybody doesn't get to see the answer and everyone doesn't get to benefit from that. And you know, you could be suffering from the same thing, suffering from the same symptom, the same issue. You know, some of these things are not everybody is suffering from them. So it's a good way to get it out there and for you to get more information. So if you're here, feel free to say hi. And if you're here, you know, you can ask a question. Feel free to post in the comments below your question. And if it's about today's subject, I'll get to it. If not, well, I can do another live on it. But today I'm talking about Hashimoto's. I've been getting lots and lots of questions come through. And it's been an interesting kind of few weeks where a few people I know have been diagnosed. I've had a few clients that are going through this. And it's one of those conditions that actually, unless you really dive deep and start testing, it's really difficult to understand exactly what's going on. And it's one of those conditions that kind of goes undiagnosed or unrealized what's going on. And it's actually an immune issue that does affect the thyroid. So it can cause symptoms like fatigue, it can cause weight problems, it can cause depression, it can cause menstrual cycle problems. Oh, hi Pauline, how are you? Thanks so much for joining today. Thank you. It's good to be back actually, really great to be back. So I had a bit of a break, which was nice. It's always good to have a break. I'm actually going to be writing a blog on resting. So I'll be popping that on my blog soon, just about the benefits of kind of resting and having a little bit of a tech break. Because I think we all need that from time to time. It's good to slow down. But with Hashimoto's, it is one of those conditions that goes undiagnosed. You know, it's difficult to get your full thyroids done unless there's a family history, unless you're seriously ill, or unless you're already on medication, or unless you've actually got an autoimmune condition and they want to just double check your thyroid. But it's always good to really look and try and get those tests because it can actually mean something. You know, Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism can cause so many different symptoms that you have for your whole life, and if it's never checked, if it goes undiagnosed or unchecked, then it can lead to other autoimmune conditions. And I've got clients that have gone through kind of celiac later in life, through their 50s, 60s and 70s, they're becoming celiac, or they're getting lupus, or they're getting rheumatoid arthritis. And actually, if you trace this back, it could actually be something to do with the immune system, maybe in their 30s. Maybe in their 30s they had trouble losing weight. Maybe they had a baby and Hashimoto sort of kicked in after the baby, which sometimes it does. So if it goes undetected, it can actually lead to not just weight gain and not depression and dry skin and hair loss and constipation, but it can also lead to other autoimmune conditions later on in life. So it's really important to identify this. But for those of you that are suffering from Hashimoto's, or that matter, any other autoimmune condition, whether you're on medication, whether you're not on medication, whether you're treating it with anti-inflammatories, whether you're treating it with strong painkillers, no matter what autoimmune condition it is, but particularly I'm talking about Hashimoto's here because that can be one of the first sort of signs of an autoimmune condition, you really need to follow these 5 steps, because following these 5 steps is going to help your body to get into a place where it can start to heal. And what you don't want is you don't want one autoimmune turning into another, because that is so common. So it's so important to start to realize that even if you're on medication, if you've got a GP, you've got a specialist, you can do other things to help your symptoms. You can do other things to help the progression, to stop the progression. You can actually do other things to start to heal. You don't have to live with this. You don't have to always live with the pain and the trauma of having an autoimmune condition and not being able to do anything. So I just want to take you through these 5 steps. They're actually, you know, when you break them down and you do them one at a time, they're actually quite very simple. So I'm going to start with the first one, and the first one is always inflammation. You need to check your inflammation. You know, inflammation in the body can cause issues with your gut, it can cause issues with your thyroid, it can cause issues with your metabolism, so your cortisol. It can cause issues with estrogen. All of your hormones can go totally haywire when inflammation is involved. So inflammation is actually probably one of the core issues that a lot of people suffer, and it's one of the core issues that will lead to chronic illness and chronic disease. And you know, this includes autoimmune conditions. This can include thyroid conditions. So you know, you getting your inflammation in check is really going to help you to heal from your chronic issue, or help to heal from your autoimmune condition. So inflammation can come from a lot of different places. Inflammation can come externally, so it can come from a new house, new paint, new furniture, a new mattress. It can come from food that's been treated with chemicals, you know, Roundup, or foods that's been treated with pesticides or fungicides, or foods that have been irradiated. So foods that have come into Australia, these are fresh fruit and vegetables, foods that have come into Australia from another country, they would have been irradiated, and that's why it's important to get locally grown food. That's why it's so important to know where your food comes from. So these little things maybe you haven't thought about can cause inflammation. Medications can cause inflammation. Your gut, so if you've got particular bacteria in your gut, that can cause inflammation as well. So inflammation, I'd say, is number one, pivotal, sits at the top, pivotal to get the inflammation under control. And the way to do that, you know, is to definitely lower your chances of having these inflammatory factors around you. So minimize external inflammation. So minimize the cleaners you use, or minimize the skincare. Just slowly minimize. I'm not saying you have to go totally 100% natural, because that's actually pretty hard, and that is hard for some people. But you know, you can slowly do things and just slowly say, okay, well, I use, you know, a body moisturizer all over my skin. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put natural on my skin, and I'm going to put chemical on my face. And so you just slowly minimize it that way, and just look after your environment with natural cleaners and natural skincare. If you know you've got an issue with, say, a mattress that's new, now everything's sprayed with flame retardant, so lots of things are sprayed with that, and that's good. It keeps us safe, because then they're not going to burst into flames, and you know, that's dangerous. But it can be an issue if we're on a mattress and it's got flame retardant or something like that. So what you need to do is you need to assist your body to remove this and reduce the inflammation. And one of the best things to do that is, obviously, turmeric is fantastic. Turmeric is a great anti-inflammatory. Other herbs and spices work as, you know, anti-inflammatory agents. So, you know, black pepper is wonderful, nigella seeds are wonderful. So you can just be adding organic spices, you know, onto your foods to help reduce the inflammation. That's definitely a way you can go about it. But turmeric is fantastic. So, you know, even teas with turmeric in, adding turmeric to your food. I've got a wonderful bone broth recipe where I put turmeric root in, and I actually cook that over a period of time to get the anti-inflammatory factors there. So that's one way you can do it. Other things like fish oil and krill oil are also great anti-inflammatory agents. So they help to reduce the inflammation, and they really help to reduce any pain that you might be in, or pain associated to this. I love krill oil because it's got a beautiful like red color, you know, that redness it has, and that also helps to, that's the astaxanthin, and that is so wonderful if you're in pain. So if you're in pain associated with your Hashimoto's, definitely take the krill oil. I mean, it's fantastic anti-inflammatory. I just absolutely love it. So we talked about, you know, spices like turmeric, then taking something like krill oil or taking something like fish oil. They're absolutely wonderful. Then there's kind of other things. You have sort of herbal ones which can also help as well. Some people like to take little herbal decoctions, you know, with a little bit of kava in, or some withania, or even rhodiola, that can actually help to reduce inflammation overall in the body. So those are fantastic to use. But identify what can be causing the inflammation. Identify external factors. Sometimes it's just not, you know, you don't actually, it's not obvious. So, for example, I was brought up in the countryside in the UK, and it wasn't obvious to me until I got older what the inflammatory factors could be. And I actually went back to my family home. So going back each time, I realised that, okay, there's actually quite a lot in the countryside. When the countryside, you think of fresh air, you think of, oh, it's, you know, beautiful, there's all this. But actually, when you live in the countryside, and particularly where I lived, with my family, we had a log fire, so a lot of fumes and a lot of carbon from the log fire. The heating was actually a coal fire, and what it used to do, it used to pump out, whenever the wind went like a funny direction, it used to pump out all the gas, so the combustion gases into the kitchen, and it was kind of like this like sulfur smell, very, very strong. I mean, even that would cause inflammation. And then thirdly, we would live in an area where it was surrounded by wheat fields. And so, of course, the wheat's getting sprayed with herbicides and pesticides. So if I had to go back and if I had to live that time again, and if I was to give advice to anyone that lived in that situation that I lived in, I would actually do things just to ameliorate what could be happening in terms of the inflammation. So when I knew they were going to spray pesticides and herbicides, I would probably take some iodine, because iodine can go very low in those instances and you can actually get thyroid problems. And so if you suffer, say for instance, thyroid nodules or that kind of thing, you probably do need iodine. So work out when your local area is actually spraying and maybe take some extra iodine, maybe take some extra chlorophyll, maybe take some extra barley grass, that kind of thing, just to assist your body to getting rid of this stuff and actually helping the liver and helping the tissue to get out of it. You know, and also things like infrared saunas, fantastic for inflammation and also fantastic for your body to get rid of all those chemicals. I can see that Rachel joined earlier. I'm not sure if she's still on, but Rachel has a massage place that's got an infrared sauna, and even just doing something like that on a regular basis, or doing something like that when you know the local area is spraying, or you know, during winter when you've got the log fire going, that kind of thing, and there's lots of smoke. So just you know, just see what you can do in that circumstance. But I know if I was to go back and live that life again, knowing what I know now, I would actually be a little bit more purposeful about cleansing and about detoxing and just trying to make sure I could manage my body in that environment. So that's oh, sure. Oh, okay. We might actually, I mean, now we're talking about cleansing, but Pauline, we can do one, but definitely Hashimoto's and MTHFR, anything thyroid are like twins. And it's all to do with the detoxing in the body. So unfortunately with MTHFR, the detoxing doesn't happen properly. But I can definitely do one. I think I've actually done one about that, but we can definitely go into more depth with that, because it's really important to get that under control, the MTHFR, and that's going to help the Hashimoto's, definitely. The second point to discuss is infection. So underlying infections, okay? So one thing I've noticed, and you guys may have noticed this as well, you may have noticed yourself, if you get diagnosed with Hashimoto's, or if you're suffering from a symptom of Hashimoto's, what you find is maybe it happened in a time that you got an infection, or you had an operation, or you were sick, or you had to go on medication. And what I've noticed, and this is, I've noticed this time and time and time again with Hashimoto's, somebody had an infection that went unresolved. So glandular fever, a cyst in the mouth, you know, a boil under the tooth, or they had teeth surgery, or they had braces put in, or even that Invisalign put in. Things that happen that can cause little minor infections, because we've got so much bacteria in our mouth, and that can get on the Invisalign, that can get under the gums, that can get inside. Maybe you had a root canal and a few months later you were feeling like shit and you're like, what happened? And then the Hashimoto's diagnosis came. So what I've noticed with it can happen with infection, and I'll tell you one infection it can happen with that goes undetected time and time and time and time again. It's the stomach infections. So it's the Giardia, it's the blastocyst, it's the or other microscopic parasites, as well as macroscopic parasites and worms, or maybe a bacterial infection in the gut like strep or like staph. So if you have gut issues, I would always recommend getting your gut tested, because if that issue goes undiagnosed or untreated, then that can lead to Hashimoto's later on. It can lead to an autoimmune response in your body. I've had clients recently being diagnosed with Blastocystis hominis, and actually one symptom that I will tell you that I've seen actually quite similar through these clients that have been diagnosed is low DHEA. So that is a hormone, and when that's low we get quite run down. So if you've ever had any saliva tests done with any of your practitioners, doctors or that kind of thing, if you've had a saliva test done or a blood test for DHEA and it's particularly low, extremely low, then what I would do is I would couple that with a stool test, so a CDSA, complete diagnostic stool analysis, and that will tell you if there's any blastocyst, if there's any Giardia, if there's any strep, if there's any Klebsiella, any of those bacteria, because those black bacteria going undetected can also lead to that. So when I say infection, we can actually have infections as well that we don't know about. You know, I had a client also that had an abscess under a tooth and they didn't know that it was there. Also on your tonsils. So here's another thing about your tonsils. If you spent your childhood or your teens having infected tonsils and you've still got your tonsils now, sometimes there's a good chance that there's a little bit of bacteria that's been there for years just living away, the back of your tonsils just living away nicely, and then that will be a threat to your body, and your body can then mount an immune response. So look out for infection in your body and try and manage infection. You know, in the mouth, dry skin brushing in the mouth. No, don't dry skin brush in your mouth. That's going to hurt. Oil pull and put a drop of essential oil in when you do oil pulling. You know, you got oregano, you got frankincense. Do oil pulling each day. I oil pull every single morning for about 10 to 20 minutes. Every single morning without fail. I will always oil pull. Floss as well every day. And then brush your teeth with a natural toothbrush. And then for a few days once a month, so about if you find that you ever get any gum problems, or you get smelly breath, or you get bleeding gums, or you get inflamed gums, or you've got receding gums, if you've got anything going on in your mouth at all, or even if you've got braces or you've had any work done in your mouth, you want to alkalize your mouth. So probably a few days once a month. I would recommend, don't do this if you've got bad enamel, but every day once a month I would definitely recommend doing bicarb of soda just to alkalize the mouth as well, and just to help with the bacteria. But definitely sort out some kind of hygiene, mouth hygiene. You know, get checked up by your dentist, make sure there's no infection in your tonsils, and make sure you haven't got any underlying skin infections. Have you got any boils anywhere? You know, this kind of sounds silly, but you need to check this stuff and just make sure there's no infections going on. So the third point is nutrition, nutrients, low nutrition and low nutrients. So it's very common, and this is where MTHFR comes in. It's very common for Hashi patients to be low in your B12, low in iron, low in selenium, low in iodine, low in zinc. Oh, we got tons. Let me give you some signs of what some of them might be. So low zinc, you might get flaky scalp, skin problems, white spots on your nails. You might get cracked lips, those kind of things. You might have infections that won't resolve. Those are the kind of things you're expecting. Lots of skin issues from low zinc. White or purple stretch marks that are getting worse, and there's quite a lot of them. One sign of Hashis that could be underlying is those sudden visuals of stretch marks suddenly coming up. So look out for that. Look at your skin, a stretch mark's kind of just popping up. So have a look at that. But definitely zinc you can get from oysters. You can supplement with zinc. You can get them from pumpkin seeds, but it's really important that you get your zinc up. Selenium is another one that helps the immune system and also helps the thyroid. And I always say, you know, 3 Brazil nuts a day, and that gives you a really good dose of selenium. If your stomach isn't absorbing the nutrients as well as it can be, then you may need to take a supplement for selenium. But just regulate that, because you don't want to go too high for too long with selenium. Then you've got your Bs. You most likely want to go activated. Those are your methyl B12s, but you need to be careful, and you need to work with a practitioner to help you with the dosage and to help you with that, because as some of you know, it can get quite complicated when you're over or under, and sometimes you get anxious, sometimes you get a bit low mood. So you just need to be careful with your Bs. Always go low if you're doing it yourself. Low dose, broad spectrum activated Bs, because that's something that could be low. And then iodine, so just add in some dulce flakes, add in some kelp, add in some seaweed. If you need to get tested, you can get a urine test from your local practitioner. That's probably a good thing to do, so you can know if you're low. The fourth thing to look out for, so the fourth thing is your diet. And this is, even though I put it fourth, this is something you can do straight away. And this is one of the most important things you can do for inflammation, you can do for your immune system, you can do for your thyroid health, you can do for your health all around. And it goes without saying, and you know, I know this sounds like it's, I know it sounds like, my mum will tell me it's just a fad, and people will tell me you don't need to, but gluten and certain proteins in dairy can really inflame autoimmune conditions. So I would definitely cut gluten out of my diet. With dairy, I would cut it out, but you want to be careful with dairy because dairy does have a lot of nutrition in it. So just look at your overall health and make sure you're not swapping dairy out for something that's worse. Make sure you're not going to the supermarket and you're getting like the cheapest almond milk or, you know, rice milk or soy milk, because actually that's not going to do you any good either. So if you're cutting dairy out, you really need to make sure you're still getting your fat soluble vitamins. So I would highly recommend doing something like Green Pastures fermented cod liver oil. Highly, highly, highly recommend that, particularly if you're cutting out your dairy. And you need to find other ways to get your calcium. You need to find ways to get your phosphorus, your manganese, your magnesium, your zincs, your minerals. All of those things that are in dairy, you need to figure out how you're going to get them. You won't get them from almond milk. You won't get them from rice milk. You won't get them from coconut milk. You need to either have animal sources or some fat-soluble vitamins elsewhere. Or if you're a vegan and vegetarian, you need to be making sure that your stomach acid is working so well that you're getting all that phosphorus, you're getting all that calcium, everything else you need from your vegetarian sources. So just be careful when you cut out dairy altogether. Just make sure that you've got those vitamins in an array of other things and that your digestion is working really well. When it comes to your diet, I would go high vegetables. I would go, it's kind of like a paleo-esque kind of diet. Not paleo. Paleo is too high meat, paleo. I'd go, you know, you want to go lower a bit again. You don't want to go too high meat, but definitely you want to look at cutting out gluten, cutting out dairy, soy. Those are the three things you want to look at. And then you also want to be careful with a few other foods. Lectins in legumes, make sure you sprout the legumes first. And then you want to also be careful with nightshades. Some people inflame with nightshades, you know, your potatoes and aubergine, eggplant, sorry, those kind of things. So just be careful with those, are concerned. Some people don't have to, but you know if you react to that. Like I know, I pay attention, and if I can't, I mean, I don't like eggplant anyway. I'm not a huge fan of eggplant. I don't know, something about it. Sometimes it's okay, but I don't like it all the time. It has to be cooked, you know, really, really well, and a nice kind of sauce and all that kind of thing. But if I have it, I notice the next day that I'm tired. So just, you know, just look out for that. Just look out, how do you feel the next day? Really pay attention to how you feel the next day. Particularly if you've got Hashis or you've got a joint, autoimmune joint, and you wake up the next day and your joints are killing you, you know that probably it was something you ate that next day. So just look at that, be aware, and, you know, just monitor that. Monitor how you feel. Because I'm not saying you have to cut all of those things out, but definitely you will get far cutting your dairy and your wheat out. But add in something like cod liver oil, Green Pastures cod liver oil, because you need to get your D, you need to get your E, you need to get your A, and you need to get your K. You need to get all your fat-soluble vitamins, because without those, your body is going to struggle a little bit. And your fat-soluble vitamins is the messenger for calcium and other minerals. So your fat-soluble vitamins will come in and they will instruct those where to go. You go into the bones, you go into the hair, you go here, you go here, you go to the teeth, okay? So that's what you need. And that's, so if you've got any issues with osteoporosis or you've got any issues with teeth health or that kind of thing, fat-soluble vitamins are going to help your body to send the minerals exactly where they need to go. So that's with the diet. And with the diet, you'll see on my, you know, I put lots of things up about the diet and talking about macronutrients. And if you're following the Breakthrough Program, the Breakthrough Program, again, is a great thing for, you know, general autoimmune and that kind of thing, just with a few little tweaks. So just pay attention to a lot of the recipes there and a lot of the recipes on the blog, okay? I know it's a lot. We're going to get to the fifth thing now. And the fifth thing now is, again, the most important. I'm saying most of them most important, but this is, okay, so it's stress. It's stress. Stress is totally massive, because if we're stressed, okay, you know, talking about this, I know people roll their eyes because a lot of people are stressed. I know it is really difficult, but stress does have such a huge impact on how the body recovers, how the body reacts, how the body utilizes minerals. So if we're stressed, we can't absorb minerals properly. If we're stressed, the messages our body is going to send itself are going to be kind of all over the place, kind of haywire. So you need to really have a look at how your day is looking and start to implement things that are going to bring you down from stress. And I'm not saying that you have to be doing yoga 2 hours a day and meditating 2 hours a day, but what I have found is good for me, and this is good for me, and I think this is the best way that anyone else can go about it. It's implementing things really slowly in your day. So I've kind of changed up my day. I changed back in 2014. Back in April 2014, prior to April 2014, I didn't really do too much. All my work was face to face with clients, and then I started doing a little bit of a shift. So I shifted to doing more blog writing, book writing, that kind of thing, and online stuff. And so what I was doing is I was getting up at about 4:30, and I was having a bulletproof coffee that early, and getting up at like 4:30, and just working until about 9. I like having a break, maybe having a breakfast or something at 9. Anyway, that was going okay for a time, but then suddenly my body just failed me. It was like, no. And so in December 2014, I got quite sick. And I got sick with sort of a lot of different things. A lot of it was sort of metabolic, a lot of it, you know, sort of heart and stress issues. But I got sick, and that made me realize, you know, the power of sleep, the power of rest, the power of just taking time out, the power of not being afraid to just sit and do nothing. And sometimes I feel like, you know, we're just busy all the time, and that we think that we need to have a holiday to relax. But just taking 10 minutes out, just 10 minutes out. So this is what I do now, completely changed my routine. So I get up later now. I get up a lot later. So I get a lot later. I get up at 5 now. 5 works for me. Before 5, I was getting sick, I was getting tired. So there's lots on the internet at the moment. Get up at 3, get up at 4, get up at this time, get up at this time. But we're all so very different. I found that getting up too early made me sick. It made my chest. I would constantly felt like I had a chest infection. Every time I'd wake up, I constantly felt like So, you know, I now sleep until 5. And what I'll do is when I get up, I make myself just a normal cup of coffee now. I sometimes have a bulletproof, but it depends what my day is going to be like. So just have a normal cup of coffee, and I sit, and I just sit for about 10 minutes and just sit in that space of relaxation, just sit and think. And I don't go on my email, I don't do social media that immediate when I get up, because that can create stress. So I kind of like ground myself in that first moment of the day. And then what I make sure is in the afternoon, I make sure I just have 10 minutes of quiet time. So meditation, quiet time, it's pretty much the same thing. And then I do yoga 3 times a week. And then when I go to bed, I make sure when I'm in bed, I've got a journal now, and I totally love it. I write this journal, but what's funny about my journal is it's look into the future journal. So it's like writing, writing future stuff. So it's kind of like, if someone read it, they think, oh my God, she's totally cray cray. It's like I was writing in my journal, and I'm like, you know, it's writing in future tense. So I write about clients and how they've succeeded and they've got this. I write about myself, and I'm like, oh, I live here, and I've got all this kind of BS. Anyway, it's actually, I'm really enjoying doing that. But I do that, and it takes me about 15-20 minutes. That's my meditation. Totally love it. So I've worked out these things that I can bring into my life that they're not too high maintenance. I don't stress out. I look forward to doing them, and I don't feel ashamed if I accidentally miss it, or I don't feel guilty, and I don't put myself down. So with stress, as from a takeaway from this with stress, if you're not already doing it, I would just sign up to something like Headspace, sign up to something like Buddhify, something like Calm App, and just do about 5 minutes of quiet time meditation a day. Just commit to 5 minutes a day, and then also commit to some downtime in the afternoon. So whether you're at work, whether you're with your kids at home, whatever it is you do during the day, commit to about 5 or 10 minutes sitting down, and just actually sitting down without thinking of what you've got to do next, or without thinking of this, without thinking of that. So that's what I call quiet time. That 10 minutes can really restore. You can get really restored from that. And then pay attention to your sleep. Pay attention if you feel rubbish in the morning and you're getting up at some ridiculous time because you're doing some new fad that says you have to get up at 3:30 to do 100 things before you go to work. If that's what you're doing and you're not feeling great doing that, just pull it back a little bit and just kind of get up a little bit later and do what you know works for you, because we're all so very different and one thing doesn't necessarily work for everyone. And I can see that I was such a fan. I was getting up early and I was telling everyone I feel amazing, and I felt amazing from April to December, and then I just totally crashed. So I had to change, and I knew something had to give, and it just didn't suit me, didn't suit the way my body was made up. I need that sleep in the morning. That hour, I think, from 4 to 5 is actually pretty important for my health. Like, it must have, I think I was probably just, you know, it's restorative. There was no restoration happening because I was going to bed early but getting up like at still middle of the night for some people. So those are my 5 things. Just check in with the inflammation, check in with infection, and don't forget to look at your stomach. If you've got stomach problems, make sure you're getting a stool test and make sure you haven't got a parasite, blastocyst, a microscopic parasite. Check in with your nutrients, you know, your zinc, your selenium, your iodine, your Bs and your iron, because normally they're low with Hashi patients. Look at your diet. Most importantly, I'd remove gluten from your diet. First and foremost, just move that out. Swap it out for some sweet potatoes, swap it out for some pumpkin, swap it out for some brown rice, basmati rice, quinoa, buckwheat. All of those things you can swap it out for today. That's a really easy thing you can do. And then I would really check into your stress, and I would just take about 10 minutes a day, whether it's journaling, whether it's meditation from something like Headspace. Just take 10 minutes a day to come down from that stress, because you need to. If you're not coming down from the stress of the day, no amount of tonics and vitamins, all those sorts of things will help. So it all goes together. So I hope that kind of made sense, and I hope I was able to simplify it for you so it wasn't too complex. But you know, those are the 5 things to really check in and write it down, and just do them one at a time and just go through them. You know, write each of the 5 things down and go through them one at a time. Where is inflammation in my body? Where could it be coming from in my environment? And how can I resolve it? The same with infection, the same with nutrients, the same with diet, and then the same with stress. And just go through those things, and you will get a brilliant result. If you go through those, you will feel so much better, no matter which, you know, if you're on medication or not on medication, or where you are in your Hashi's journey. So good luck with that. Let me know how you feel, and I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks, Pauline. We'll talk about MTHFR and Hashi's, and I'll put that in for a question, and I'll do a separate Facebook Live on it. I'd love to talk to you more about that, because I see that quite often, the MTHFR affecting the thyroid, and then we get the high liver enzymes all the time because the liver's struggling, and then we get the gallbladder and the gallbladder stone. Some people have even had their gallbladder removed because of this. So there's so many things that can be going on. So that's going to be one. I'll let you know when I'm going to do that, Pauline. But thanks so much for joining, and thanks everyone else, and have a fabulous day. Thanks for listening to me rattle on. I hope it was helpful. Bye.